everybody. Welcome back to Teach Outdoors. I'm Lauren McLean, and today we have two unbelievable guests with us. First, we've got Elisa Paul. She is the cohort coordinator for the Education for Sustainability program at the University of British Columbia. She has over a decade of experience as a classroom teacher and has spent the past 7 years working in teacher education, including her role as a faculty associate at Simon Fraser University. Elisa is currently pursuing her doctorate in education. She is the co-president of Be Outside and has contributed to the development of BC curriculum documents and brings a deep commitment to land-based learning and outdoor learning. Her passion lies in supporting educators to take teaching outside and build meaningful connections with place. Elsa Medina is a mother and educator with nearly 20 years of teaching experience. She currently works as an enhancement teacher with a Vancouver school district, where she supports co-teaching, co-planning, and mentorship of fellow educators while continuing to learn alongside them. She is currently working on her school counseling degree, specializing in mental health in youth. Elsa is passionate about teaching outdoors, seeing the land as a powerful co-teacher and a meaningful way to decolonize educational practice. She believes outdoor learning creates space for connection, reflection, and more inclusive ways of knowing. So I am so excited to have both of you here today because I know there's such a wealth of knowledge in terms of social emotional learning, which is why I wanted to talk with both of you at the same time. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. I was kind of feeling left out when you said Ministry of Ed documents that Alisa did. Of course, I knew that. I wanted to put in a plug for the K-3 climate change curriculum that just came out a few months ago. I was one of the co-writers of that too. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, it has amazing lessons that will help your eco-anxiety and help you bring climate change into the classroom with your students.
Agreed. I would add to that plug. It is a fantastic resource. I have shared it many times already. So yes, thank you, Elsa, for your hard work on that. It's
Yeah, I
amazing.
Yay.
I third all of that. It is an amazing document. It's very easy as a reader
Mhm.
to pull out things that are applicable to the classroom. So I can't imagine how many hours went into that project. So thank you for that. Today's session or episode is really all about co-regulation. So I think to start us off would really be to ask everybody what co-regulation means to you as an educator.
Yeah, so I could be a little bit nerdy with neuroscience if you want.
Go for it.
So I want to go way back. I want to go way back to uh, work by Stuart Shanker. He does a lot of neuroscience around the science of co-regulation. So there's something called the interbrain. So when you have a child and you are a parent, you are the interbrain of your child, meaning that your prefrontal cortex, which is the higher order thinking in your brain, you regulate your child. And coordinating those patterns of brain activity between the caregiver, you, the parent, and this can be done even if you didn't birth your child. You know, you could be a foster parent, you could be, you know, like a different kind of parent, adopted parent, right? We have all different kinds of parents in our world now. And the brain activity is wired during child and caregiver social interaction. And so the baby doesn't yet have a formed prefrontal cortex. And so they rely on the interbrain, and thus babies are very reliant on their adult humans.
Mhm.
And then if I bring that into the classroom, a lot of teachers, especially new ones, think that they're the only co-regulators in the classroom, which is simply not true.
Mhm.
There are all the co-regulators in the classroom. The children co-regulate me. So similarly, not only is the caregiver in a parent-child relationship, but also in the classroom, the teacher also offers the interbrain, and all the children offer interbrains to one another. So that's how I see co-regulation. And children don't have a fully formed prefrontal cortex. So therefore, they go offline very easily. So you'll see a lot of children, when their needs aren't met or they're feeling like big feelings, they might have this explosive behavior or they might have an outburst. And so what calms them is the way that they feel safe is when the child feels seen, heard, and understood by the people in their environment. And it doesn't have to be an adult, it can be a student as well. And I would love to connect that to nature later on.
Lovely.
That was amazing. I just want to give it up for like nerdy over here. Like, listen, I learn so much every time I talk to you, Elsa. Thanks so much for like
Oh, you're so sweet.
it made me think about that idea of how do we offer up our interbrain, right? Like you were talking about that it's an offering that we give. And I know I've had this conversation before with probably both of you, but the idea that we are caring for our students all the time, but it's really up to them to decide whether or not to accept that care.
Mm.
So it's that piece of how are we offering up our interbrain, and how do we support our students and guide them and scaffold that learning so that they feel that they're able to offer their interbrain up to help regulate each other. That was yeah, I love this conversation, especially about like what co-regulation is. I think so much of the time we don't fully understand, like you were saying, Elsa, what it actually means, and how I think I didn't understand the science behind it. So thank you for sharing that. But yeah, I think I've often thought about it as kind of a very a superficial kind of way. You know, when we're
Mm,
very anxious in the classroom and we do our breathing exercises,
Mm.
or we everybody is just going to come and just, close your eyes for a minute and I'm going to walk you through like a little guided meditation, right? So that kind of thing is what I associate with co-regulation, but I this is so much, it goes so much farther than that. So, yeah.
It
I
does.
love how you called it an offering
Mm.
because the when you are the interbrain, it is a conscious act. You offer something, right? So you see it all the time with children when their friend is upset, right? In real time. And we're not talking about the scripted mindfulness with the chime, right? We're talking about it's pouring rain and one of the children has slipped and fell, and there's no adults around immediately around them. And immediately a child's natural reaction is, oh my goodness, do you need some help? Are you okay? And they help their friend up, right? That's co-regulation. Someone is hurt, someone doesn't know what to do, they're screaming or whatever, crying. And then there's their friend, the calm one, giving an offering. Hey, can I help you up? Or are you okay? Oh my gosh, what happened? Right? I love framing that as an offering.
It is beautiful. And I love the positive spin on this. You know where my brain just went as I was listening to you? Last week, I took my class on a field trip. Oh man, was I beyond not regulated. And so when I think about when I had to regulate myself with the chaos of that field trip, and I just told parents, if you see me do this and sort of, touch where my collarbone is, that means I'm super stressed because I'm feeling tight in my chest. And so I was very open with that. When you see me do this, this is what it means. This is what I need. And the class laughed because I'm giving these instructions to their parents about it's not about the field trip. It's about let's make sure the teacher is doing okay. Because I think for me, it comes down also if I'm not modeling being vulnerable, I guess, and being
Mhm.
honest with how I'm feeling or how I'm coping. And if I'm not regulated, I can't expect my students to be regulated either. And I think that sort of leads me to the next thing I want to ask both of you is why is it so important to acknowledge when we're not all right as educators, right? So, you're both in these positions, the enhancement teacher working with teacher candidates up at the university. So, what does get in the way of teachers admitting when they actually do need a little support?
I think it's a huge vulnerability thing, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you talked about that the students were laughing at you trying to explain. And I think that as I'm sure you both remember from when you were in your own teacher education programs, but you're told teachers are held to a higher regard. We are judged by different circumstances. And so that piece of like feeling like you must be infallible, you must know all the answers, you must be able to do all of these things all the time without support, it weighs down on us, and it prevents us from being able to ask, being able to say, I'm not okay. I do need support. And I think this is part of this brilliance of this conversation. So Dr. Jody Carrington has done some amazing pieces about the teachers are not all right, the kids are not all right. And I think it allows that space for vulnerability. It allows us to think about what we need and to be able to ask for it. So it's, what are those openings? What are those invitations? How do we make it okay? And how do we create systems in our learning environments that allow for that? And I think that sometimes in school communities and university communities and those big kind of spaces, we feel like we aren't allowed to be vulnerable or fallible, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's a piece that comes with that. And so creating opportunities, and I think modeling it. I think it's really important for myself as a teacher educator to go in there and model when I'm not okay, when things are feeling really stressed, when, and I do that all the time, a little shamefacedly, and I have to put on a bit of a different voice like this. And the students, they get it because they realize that, I'm not sleeping at the university. I do actually have a life beyond those walls. And I think it's one of those
Hmm.
moments that our students have with us too, is when they realize that we actually have, oh, they see us outside of the classroom. They're like, what are you doing here? And you're like, groceries, like, like a normal person. And I think we need that piece to remind ourselves and our faculties and our school communities that we're also human. We are also human. We also hurt. We also bleed, and we also need support and compassion. Right? Like, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Elisa. And I think in my experience, why teachers might not come forward as easily with the things that they're struggling with or their feelings, because there is a lot of shame when you become a teacher. It's like they have this image of themselves that they just have to know how to do it right away. Okay, I got through teacher education. Now I have the keys to my classroom and I have to do it alone in this silo because it's just me. There's nobody else. But actually, it's community work. You cannot actually be a good teacher, in my opinion, just being by yourself in a classroom. Um, and I think that in general, emotions, negative emotions have a bad rep, right? You think about the zones of regulation, which is an evidence-based boxed SEL program. And, all the time, students will talk about the red zone and they think they're a bad kid. And sometimes I see it being used inappropriately where they have to go stand over there and I have to get out of the red zone.
Hmm.
And then I have to do some teaching and go, it's okay to be in the red zone. We all are in the red zone. We all become angry, and all emotions are okay. And I think that there's a lot of shame around those negative emotions of frustration, of anger, of stress, and you just want to like put them away and you don't face those emotions face to face, right? You don't want to face them. You just want to hide them away
Hmm.
by watching TV or just, whatever you need to do just to numb it. But really, those are all signals to our body. There's a message, those emotions exist in our bodies because it's telling us something. We need help. We need community. We need to go door knocking next door to our teacher friend next door or that awesome Lauren or Lisa going, hey, I just want to chat with you for a sec because I can't cope with my day.
Hmm.
Um, so I think there is a lot of shame around. And also, I have this theory. It's not substantiated by any research, but I think because elementary women are overrepresented and we're helpers. We sacrifice. We don't ask for help. We just put our head down and do the work, right? And we don't complain. And I think that just a female dominated uh, job or career. Like we just kind of like we just have to do it, like mothers, you know?
Hmm.
It's a theory. I'm not sure.
I can see a lot of truth to that, though. I think a lot of people do feel overwhelmed at the beginning of their careers and they don't know which direction is up and who to go to. And then I think sometimes experienced teachers, we almost get, I mean, not necessarily set in our ways, but we get into a groove and then maybe we forget, oh, I forgot to check in on the teacher that's only been teaching for 2 or 3 years. Oh, I'm sure they're fine. I'll just keep going. Or, a quick passing, oh, hey, how are you doing? But it's not a slow and intentional check-in with your colleague. So it can be really tricky. Um, we sort of, oh yeah, Elisa, go for it.
Going to say, I think that there's that other kind of piece that comes along with that is that people pleasing and the
Hmm.
ability to set a boundary, right? And I think that we are working towards that sometimes in female dominated environments
Hmm.
where we do step in, we do things because we see they're not being done, and so we do them.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, I've been very honest with my families the last few years. At the beginning of the year, I am available via email from 7 a.m. until 4 p.m. and then it is family time. I am not available till the next morning at 7 a.m. And I'm very strict on that rule. It is not life and death situations. It is, oh, I forgot something at school. I don't need to, I don't need to respond back to those emails until 7 a.m. But for me, that has been a big thing to help me co-regulate and balance my work life responsibilities, I suppose. Right?
I think that's great, Lauren. It's setting boundaries for yourself so you
Hmm.
don't because humans all need rest, right? We cannot be productive every moment of the day.
No.
So it's
Yeah.
so important that you take that time to nourish yourself and truly be with your family, get the rest you need, get the
Hmm.
sleep that you need. And we're always better when we get rest.
And we are. And I think again, it's that boundary setting and that we're in this world of everything needs to be done right now. Go, 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 go. And it's so busy. And so, it's 7 o'clock at night. I'm going to email the teacher because I need something and I don't hear back from you and I'm panicking. Nope, don't panic. I got your back in the morning. I'll be there. I promise. I'll help you, but not at night. Right. And I think that's no problem. I don't say it meanly at the beginning of the year. I'm not coming down, barking at people, but I'm just very calmly saying, this is my work and then I'm done and then this is my family time. Um, I want to dig into something that was hinted at the beginning when Elsa sort of mentioned talking about the land as the co-regulator. So, what does it mean when we think of the land as the co-regulator or being that safe person or that safe being?
Well, I have lots of ideas for this. And I think that because I know you do lots of stuff with sit spots, but I just want to give another type of offering. One of the core routines that I use in the classroom when I was teaching, and I still do it and I introduce it to teachers in their classroom, is I do something called off to a running start. And what it is it's allowing students to choose their energy levels and their running and walking pace. And it incorporates lots of math and all this kind of stuff. So it's just an acronym I use. And shout out to Graham Fell. He was a sponsored Nike athlete and he was a teacher that taught at my school and he did the kilometer club. He's a track and field star. And so I incorporate a lot of his ideas and then also the land-based pedagogy as well, and then learning the land, walking the
Mm.
land. So in my OTARS, OTARS, off to a running start, that's how we would start our day. But sometimes I would insert it during the day. So what it is moving together in community, starting the day. And I tell the kids it's challenge by choice. You can run, you can walk, and you can even set an intention before you start.
Mm.
What's your energy level feeling right now? Are you tired? A lot of kids come Monday morning and they're tired or they're exhausted. Okay, so we need to energize ourselves. So what do we need to energize ourselves when we're running? And so with the OTARs, Mondays I would have different themes. Mondays we would go clockwise. Tuesdays I got this from Graham Phil. Tuesdays, we would go counterclockwise. Wednesdays, we literally walked in a W. Thursdays, what did we do on Thursdays? Oh, we did the neighborhood walk, which was like a kilometer. And then Friday, they could choose. And then they always chose the neighborhood walk on Fridays.
Mm.
And so there's like a million activities you can build off this OTARS. You could track their progress as a class. You could do like a group distance. And you could color bar graphs and things like that. You could also do like individual, so doing your own mileage. And then the co-regulation comes with all kinds of weather, and that's where the land is the co-teacher. So, we go out when it's pouring rain. We go out when it's snowing. We see the land in all its beautiful glory.
Mm.
They're walking the land, and then they start noticing things that weren't there the day before. They're like, hey, there's mushrooms in the grass. Or, hey, there's snow there. And hey, there's no more leaves, right? And then the kids that aren't prepared, that go out, you ask them, you say, put on your rain jacket. And there's always a kid that says, no, I'm not putting it on. And then they get soaked and then they're crying. And then you remind them, you say, hey, how does this feel right now? Do you remember all of us telling you to put on your rain jacket? How are you feeling right now? Pretty uncomfortable, huh? What are you going to do tomorrow? And so just the learning, and I think that that repeated every day, and then actually mentors and actually that interbrain we were talking about, they start to emerge because there are the kids that they can just read the weather. They know how much warmth their body needs. Um, they just know that the ground's going to be slippery. They're the fast ones, maybe, and they start taking care of the others. They
Hmm.
say, "Hey, you, you want to get faster? Do you want to run with me?" They might say to a slower one, or, "Hey, you don't have your rain jacket today? I have an extra. Do you want to use mine? I don't mind getting wet," or something like that. So I find that this routine teaches a lot of co-regulation. And I could just go on and on with the things that we do because I've done it with so many different groups now.
It's amazing. I love that you start your mornings that way.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to start. And sometimes the kids just walk. And I will say that in Vancouver, sometimes I have an assistant. Sorry, just getting over a cold. My voice is kind
Oh,
of going. Um, but sometimes I'll have a support worker, and that does make it easier. So we can go further and around the neighborhood.
right.
But there's always a flight risk. There's somebody that you're scared is going to run away, is a little bit quick to react, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So I have a few strategies to deal with that. I usually put them in the front with me as leader, and I might hold their hand. Or I might give them like a certain mission. I might pair them up with someone. I really need you to be in the front here. And I might organize my path within the school
Hmm.
yard so that there's some natural boundaries around so that they're not running into the street. So if I'm by myself, I might just do the school grounds and not go into the neighborhood just to, think safe about my group and think about keeping them all together and
Hmm.
not losing anybody.
Yeah.
I love this idea. I've been taking notes. I think that this is such a brilliant thing to do, the off to a running start, and talk
Hmm.
about like being able to choose your speed, being able to, it's so much agency and community that you're providing, that you're offering to students. I think it's brilliant. And they're noticing and wondering, right? There's all those different inquiry pieces, like what's happening in my community today. there's so many. I'm making all of these curriculum connections. So like language arts, you could journal about it. You could, right? This, yeah, I love this routine. I might have to borrow it from you.
There's endless possibilities, truly. You know,
Yeah.
you can map. The kids actually, when we were learning about perimeter, an area, they were really curious about whether the W was more distance than just going around the schoolyard. And we actually, well, I knew the answer, but we literally took the track tape and stretched it and then added it and of course the W is way longer, right? And then we talked about that, how a diagonal is
Mhm.
longer than just like the straight edge of a rectangle. And that was just so much learning. That was like weeks and weeks of learning, right? Just like putting number sentences together and creating number stories. It was just amazing.
You literally did the Pythagorean theory with them.
Yeah, and these are
Two
grade
things.
twos,
Yeah.
right?
I love that. That
That's
is,
incredible.
I love it. It also made me think about how one of the things, the theme is actually how do we build that muscle, right? That co-regulation and like being on the land, we're building a resiliency muscle, and it takes time. Just like you wouldn't expect someone who's never run before to be able to run a 40 kilometers. Is that how long a marathon is? Like a
Yeah.
really long way to go. You wouldn't expect that without any training, you'd be able to do it. And I
Hmm.
think it's one of those things that Lauren, you and I have talked about with sit spots, right? Like it's really important that we go slow, we take our time and we build up our stamina, right? And
That's right.
that we need to have that stamina. I was thinking too about how one of the things that I do with my in my teacher ed is I share the story, Trudy's Rock Story by Trudy Spiller.
Oh, one of my favorites.
It's my favorite. I love this book so much. It is such an outstanding book, especially when you're thinking about co-regulation with the land. It's
Right.
I don't want to give it away to the listeners because I think they should read it for themselves, but it really it's such a powerful metaphor for how we can be in relation, and how not just that we can be in relation, but that we are in relation, that we are always in relation, whether we are aware of that relationship or not.
Hmm.
We're always in relation, and being very mindful about how we are showing up, how are we present in the land, for the land, with the land, and how the land actually loves us back, right? How the land is there for us, and when we need the land is giving us a little. I do this thing with my students, and I ask them to go for a walk so they can go find their rock, and I'm like, it will find you. Literally, you'll be walking along, you're looking at the ground, and you're gonna look for the rock that winks at you. And they're like, what? The rock's not going to wink at me. And I do this with adults, and that's what they say. And I'm
Yeah.
like I don't know. And they do. They all find their rock. They all find their rock, and they have a relationship with it. It's one of the things that I did even before I found that book, The Treaty's Rock Story. There was because I taught late French immersion for a long time. And there was a book that we used to read. It was called I think it was La Bibliothécaire Mystérieuse by Daniel Dem. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to Google that. Let me pause that, and we'll come back and I'll tell you the name.
Can I pick up the piece about
Yes.
Trudy's rock story while you're
Well, I
thinking
Google
about
it.
that?
Yes. Okay, take a deep
Um,
and wait because
I
yeah,
love that so much, Elisa.
yep.
Like I love Trudy
Judy's Rock
Trudy
Story.
Spiller.
Yes.
She's Gitsen. I know that.
Yeah.
Um, and it reminds me of a teaching from Morgan Guerin, who's from Musqueam, and he talks about how Mother Earth takes care of us.
Mm.
And that story really, really demonstrates that, when you're having a hard time, I also don't want to give away the story. You can turn to Mother Earth, and then in return, as something that you can give back to her, you always need to take care of her because we always take care of our mothers, right? So I tell the students that, when they're just ripping the leaf off, I kind of say, does Mother Earth come and rip your hair out? That's not how we take care of our Mother
Hmm.
Earth. So that's a great way to remind the students about, there is this healing capacity of Mother Earth that she really watches out for us, and but we have a responsibility to take care of her too.
Mhm.
Yeah. And again, our class, we just had this big project because, it's the end of the year, everything's wrapping up. And so, Lisa, you and I were talking a lot about this idea of stewardship and how it's more about relation. And so I had brought this up to my grade two, threes as well, Elsa. And we had said, we've done so much this year on and with the land, in our forest, in our concrete jungle area, in our garden. So, what are we going to do to sort of show our gratitude back? And so we brainstormed all these different ideas and we came up with the idea that we'll go into the forest and we will pull and remove some English ivy, which Elsa and I had done together, I don't know, 2 years ago now
Yes, I t with your
with
kiddos,
my kids.
with
Yes,
your
we did a
gorgeous kids.
yes. And so we did that with my class. We went outside. I taught them how to remove it, properly, not ripping it off the tree trunk. We didn't want to harm the bark, putting it into the garbage bags and then actually putting it into the garbage, not compost. And our class was just buzzing, like palpable excitement because they felt like they were, what did they call it? The forest protectors, or they had given it some sort of,
Mm.
catchy name like that, that they were saving the forest from breathing better. And then, we're all quite theatrical. You can imagine these grade two, three kids are standing there because they felt that they could breathe better because the trees could breathe better. It was so
Oh,
heartwarming. But to me, again, that's this whole notion of that was us co-regulating with the land. The land was our safe place or our safe person, our safe being, and it was just such an incredible way to sort of wrap our school year up with one another.
I do have a question for you, Lauren, because I
Yeah.
didn't know how to navigate this question with my two threes with the invasive species conversation.
Yes.
And I actually avoided it because
Mm,
I felt like I didn't do a good job of answering. So when you're removing your invasive species, I've got my students to the point where they value all living creatures. The
yes.
part that they get stuck on is how come nobody's sticking up for English ivy?
Yeah.
English ivy is a living being. What gives us the right that they can't live here?
And
And
it's
then
a
I was
beautiful
literally
question.
stumped out.
Yeah.
And and then I do say, because, we do want our native species to grow.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I was stumped with that one.
And I do not have a great answer for this. I feel like I've stumbled with it with our class as well. We mostly talk about how we're never going to get rid of English ivy. That's not the point. We're just trying to keep the population not overwhelming everything else that's in our forest so that we can still have a bit of a balance. So we didn't remove everything because, oh my goodness, that would have taken us months. There's a lot of English ivy where we are. We've
I like
also,
that because you're
right?
not ending the life.
We're
You're
not ending
just
the life.
you're kind of giving English ivy a trim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just, yeah, it's just a little haircut, right? We're not doing a buzz cut. We're just doing a little trim. And we have done in the fall, we usually do a, what would you call it? A more like data collection style activity. Yes, right? So what is everything that is growing and living on our ground? And there's quite a few that are invasive, but it's not overtaking things. We do have creeping buttercup. We've got, I mean, I can't even remember, our list is so long, but it's doing okay. So we don't remove buttercup either. We just let it
Hmm.
that do its thing. The only thing that we really do, I phone the city for, is when we find like big piles of Scotch broom. That
Yeah.
I think is okay for us to be like, ring ring, just so you know.
I feel bad for Scotch broom. It smells nice and it kind of looks pretty, but
It's a
it's
beautiful
it's
yellow.
it's really awful and
It's
it's
awful.
yeah.
It is unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, it's a great question and I don't have a wonderful answer. Elisa, what would you sort of suggest with those tough conversations?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I was at a workshop one time and I heard someone say that The thing with invasive species is that a lot of time they actually do quite a bit of good.
They do.
And I remember hearing that about English ivy and how it's one of the best producers of oxygen.
Hmm.
It is a carbon dioxide filter, and it
Yeah.
produces more oxygen than like half of our populations of things. So it's like, yeah, I think that I like the idea of making space and we're not getting rid of it entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's when a transplant becomes invasive is different, right? It's okay to have different plants in spaces that they didn't grow up in.
Hmm.
But we want to ensure that we're keeping space for our local plants as well to survive and thrive.
Yeah.
But it is a tough one. Like the frog leaf, the plantain,
Yeah.
it's been naturalized to the area because it is so um, it has such good impacts on the soil. It is used by multiple cultures as like a uh,
Medicinal.
medicinal. Thank you.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
There are plants that have become naturalized, and that was a term that I heard in that workshop. So I can't remember the
Yeah.
workshop, but yeah, I like that idea too. Right? That it's yeah. How are you showing up?
Yeah.
Right? How are you showing
Yeah. I mean, even this weekend, I'm driving downtown, which I never do with my kids. So it was very rare for us. But as we were going, and because that experience, Elsa, with my two kids doing that invasive plant pull workshop, has stuck with them. Like they can identify English ivy from a mile away. And as we were driving downtown, there was a big skyscraper, and right, yeah, that's growing up on the side of a building. And both kids just scream out the window, English ivy's on the building. It's going to suffocate it. And they're just in a panic in the back seat. And I said, oh, well, I'm not pulling around. We still have to get to where we're going. Uh, Great at identifying it. I'm very proud of you. But again, there's a time and a place for it. Here, it's actually not going to, well, not that I know of, it's not going to harm this building. It was put there on purpose so that it wasn't an ugly gray building. And we're just going to leave it as is. So it's, there's such a tough conversation with even young kids, right?
Yeah.
We can have
Yeah.
great conversations with them.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. Now, I know before we had recorded this, we had also talked a lot about this idea of setting up routines for co-regulation because, we run our classrooms in such a beautiful way. However, when we're not there, sometimes things can fall by the wayside. A TOC may write a note, oh, that was a rough day I had with your class. And that's heartbreaking for me to read those notes. I'm like, really? I can't, I'm so surprised. Like, what happened? What went wrong? And not in a blame way, but in a I'm very curious kind of way. So I would love to know what are some simple routines that supports co-regulation, but that a TOC could come in and still lead it without it always coming from us as the main teacher.
I'm trying to think about this because we talked about this before. I did have an awesome response to this, but I was just like, what? It's like flew my mind. But I think those simple routines, like doing I think sometimes when you're writing your supply teacher notes or your substitute teacher notes or your TOC notes, whatever you call it, wherever you are, sometimes you're not unpacking exactly what you're doing and the intention. I think it
Hmm.
is powerful to do routines that you normally do with
Hmm.
your students. So, for example, I was always reluctant to do the OTARs, the off to a running start with a TOC because I thought that they couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
But if I empowered my students, say I front loaded them for a time that I was going to be away a day ahead of time, and empowered them to actually be the lead and not the TOC have to be the lead. Because really, what is co-regulation? It is calming down your limbic system, which is your brainstem area, the part where, you go offline and you have a big reaction. Dan Siegel would say upstairs brain isn't connecting with downstairs brain.
Mm-hmm.
So the more ways we can actually co-regulate one another and actually have experiences where an interbrain is actually calming down somebody else, the more times we can have that upstairs, downstairs communicating with one another, the more we have co-regulation, and then we can start building resiliency, community building, empathy, all
Mm-hmm.
those good things that are actually really, really hard to teach. So I think maybe empowering the students could be a powerful way to help TOCs.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe doing routines, maybe simplifying it a little bit, rather than making it a big challenge. And then the challenging part is just having a different adult, but really they can do it on their own, something that they could do independently. So I
Yeah.
think that might be a good help.
Yeah. Lovely.
I love that idea. I had a couple of ideas as you were talking, but I just want to highlight that piece around agency and how by empowering our students, it actually helps everybody in the room. I was thinking about how sometimes it's been just a walk around our local space with a TOC, right? And I tell them, here's the corners that you're going to go to. And we'd like to stop and look at this tree over here. And I'll have a little map in my TOC day plan and be
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the tree they like to stop at. And there used to be two trees at one of the schools that I worked at that made like an arch going up, and we called that our wishing tree. And when you passed through the portal, you got to make a wish. And so the students
Mm.
Oh,
loved to go through the portal because and always one of the wishes had to be a wish for the forest. So they could make one wish for themselves and then one wish for the forest. So they weren't allowed to say it out loud. And so that was one of the routines that we had in our classroom, is like that was how we started our day. Sometimes it was how we ended it, but it was just one of those routines, was going for a walk. Not like otars. I really love otars.
I know.
Um, and the interbrain, I think that's a piece that would be really good for even when we're doing a circle, when we're sharing things at the end of the day, or maybe you have an opening circle or a closing circle. And sometimes having a heart stone is helpful with that, or some other kind of touchstone that students are actually holding on to, and
Mm.
to talk out loud what's happening for them in a circle is a good kind of routine for regulating, especially if you have a TOC and this is a routine that you're doing with your students. The last one that I would say would be like a scripted guided meditation, where you provide the script in advance for TOCs so that it's not something that they're trying to think of off the cuff, but that is being outside. So walking them through, actually going for a walk in your school grounds, have them close their eyes and just basically write what you would do when you were taking them outside for a walk. And that is a very powerful way to help regulate without actually having to take them outside. So if that's a concern for a TOC,
Mm-hmm.
mm,
works really, really well to help them have almost the same impact. I don't know if there's like a research thing about that in Elsa, but that actually calls them into the land, right? And I think that yeah, it's
Yeah.
worked really well in the past. So
Lovely.
yeah.
yeah, and I think that if there is an interbrain between a mother and a child, I think there's an interbrain between Mother Nature and humans, because
Mm-hmm.
we are wired to connect with nature, the earth, the air, the sky. And so there's tons of research, and I can't name them off the top of my head, but we all know. And now with national parks, passes being given by, physicians, it is um, a known fact that going outside actually regulates your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that. And another thing that came to mind, Elisa, when you're talking, when you bring an adult that is not your familiar adult, like a TOC or something, you're really changing up that role between who is the expert and
Mm-hmm.
who is the learner. So actually empowering the children to be the teacher and showing the adult, what's up and what's going on. is actually a truly, truly powerful thing. And I think that's where you can really get the kids to cooperate and play nice with that adult, right? When if you leverage them to do that. So, and that's why I really love land-based teaching because it kind of flips
Hmm.
the traditional ways of learning. It doesn't have to be the adult pouring the knowledge into the students. It really can be the students being the experts and
Yeah.
putting them in that position.
Well, and so I've only been away once this year, and it was on a Monday. And so I had left my note, exactly what you were saying, Elsa. I had said, we go outside for 90 minutes. Hope you're dressed okay. And then I had broken down the students like in different flashcards, like in different groups. So on this flashcard, there were 6 kids, and I just wrote nature walk. And so that group was in charge of the direction of the nature walk, what they saw. And then the next group on the second flashcard was leading the circle after the nature walk. And then the third flashcard was for activities. So they got to choose some of the favorite activities that we'd already done this year that requires no materials, just experiential. And then there was another group that led the sit spot and nature journals at the end as well. And so the teacher left this note saying that they actually went outside again in the afternoon because it went so well between recess and lunch that they basically just reshuffled the groups and they did a whole new exploration outdoors in the afternoon because she said it was
Yay!
so incredible. My class, even apparently, like not prompted by me, this is just how incredible they are. They each tried to teach the TOC one special thing about, like, our entire school grounds, a tree or a plant or what you can harvest, what you can't harvest. It was so incredible. I was just so proud. And that, again, that's
Beautiful.
not from me. That was the students taking that ownership over it because they were so proud of what they had learned over the course of the year.
Now, can you imagine if those students got an opportunity to lead a Pro D?
Ooh,
They could show other
yeah,
teachers in other schools and other districts what that routine looks like.
yeah.
Like if they could be the leaders, if they could be the teachers.
Wouldn't that be great?
So
And I mean,
powerful.
I think this sort of goes into this next question. I mean, hopefully, I'm not taking up too much of your time, ladies.
No, not at all. This is
Okay,
fun.
it's such good conversations. But this naturally leads into this next thing that I wanted to ask is how do we build that student trust in these different routines so that they use them when they need them, not because I'm telling them to go do 5 deep breaths at their sit spot, but they have that awareness and self-management to say, you know what? I'm gonna go for a walk over here. I'm gonna use some of my strategies. So how do we set that tone, I guess?
It's a great question, Lauren. And the group that I've been with was, I've only been with them since the beginning of April. And these are kids that don't easily trust people.
Mm,
And so it's right at the top of my mind right now. I think what you need to have in order to build trust is that you need to be there when the times are tough. So at the beginning, when they're really resisting, these are kids that don't trust people. So
mhm.
their alarm brain, their limbic system, their downstairs brain is on alarm. Not safe, not safe. There's an adult that I don't know, and they will do everything. Like when I first arrived, they were climbing the walls and they said, I hate you, you're not my teacher. So what I needed to do is I just needed to be an emotional compass, and I just needed to make sure that I was calm
Hmm.
and just stay there when it got bad, when they put out their worst defend mode. They're not in learning mode at that point. They're not in exploration mode. They're in defend mode. And
Hmm.
so what the first step is lowering their defenses by, being tender, being there no matter what, even when they're shouting at you. And then when something happens that's stressful, you be the interbrain. You take care of them. You offer that safe, that calm. What's going on? What happened? And using those feeling words and empathy and reflecting back what is going on. And eventually they feel it in their bodies and they think to themselves, hey, this person is, I think I can trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, it goes back to that care ethic, right? You're kind of closing that circle of is it an attachment thing? Not quite an attachment thing. It's a circle of care thing, right? They show a need and you
Mm-hmm.
close that circle by meeting that need or, meeting, like if they need to feel understood, you're listening to their story. Someone's art got ruined or they lost their
Yeah.
favorite, pencil or stuffy, and then you take the time to go find it. Even if you can't find it, you really be present and say,
Mm-hmm.
I see that this is so important to you. Let's go find this together.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they perk up and they go, oh my, this feeling in my body. Oh, the alarm brain is going away. Oh my goodness, my upstairs brain is actually connecting. I actually feel, you know, I feel calm and connected and grounded. And so that's where trust is built. It really is a physiological thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, and that can be done just through your presence.
Yeah.
And I also heard you say time.
I was
It,
going to say that
it
too.
it's physiological and it's time. It takes time. We can't expect our students to be able to do this from the beginning. The other thing that I heard when you were talking was scaffolding. So all of that scaffolding learning that we put into place so that students can, well, the first thing we have to do is we have to get the upstairs and the downstairs brain to like do their things so they're not flapping about and not knowing what to do. Right. So it's like, how do we help them get back to exactly like, I know that feeling. I've seen my students have that feeling. I sometimes have that feeling still. So it's really about how do we scaffold that learning and also using metacognitive strategies with them, right? So helping them wrap words around what they're feeling and then thinking it back with them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? And then, oh, so these things precipitated those emotions, and then you did this, and then you felt that, right? So there's a lot of the first then kind of strategies as well that we use with students. So how do we support them to, like, maybe there's posters on the wall to help remind them about what happens when you're feeling like your upstairs brain and your downstairs brain aren't talking, or when you're feeling like this is not safe. Like, what are those steps? So there could be, and I love it when we have our students make those posters themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Always the most powerful, right? So they could be in that creative mode as well to help create posters in the room, or little, the tiny little provocation things that we put on tables, little questions
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
are you feeling this way? And of course, they have their own words and their own language that they could, and that again helps them find that agency. It's community building. How do we support each other? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really love that. And it reminded me that, you get these children and you always get some that take longer to trust you. And one of the things I find with children with a lot of trauma is offering nature, plantkin, as
Mm-hmm.
someone to show what a healthy relationship looks like. And sometimes that's easier than humans going to befriend a tree. One of my classes one year in the garden, before I started gardening, I used to try to read the seed pack and try to get the right depth and like perfect conditions, and I got stressed out. And with this group, I just forgot about that, and I just told the children, I told my students, I said how much love, care, and attention you give these plants, they will give back. And they did that to the max. And this
Mm.
garden grew like you would not believe. It was corn, squash, and beans. And it was just exploding. And all my colleagues were like, what kind of fertilizer did you use? What kind of, did you follow some kind of planting technique? And I was like, no, the students gave so much love. I'm talking these kids sang to their plants. They
Oh.
during reading time, they brought their books and they read to their books because I told them that when they talk to them, they're actually breathing out carbon dioxide. So it's actually an act of love. And then I said, you keep asking the plant what they need. You touch their leaves and you close
Mm.
your eyes and maybe you feel it in your body. And they would come up with the most amazing thing. They would like me to read a book to them. They would like me to read Frog and Toad. I'm like, okay, do that. Or some of them would say they want me to sing a song to them and they would
Oh.
spend their time outside. And so we would spend our reading time out there. We would spend our science time out there. And I tell you, that group that gave the most love and attention, I never had the garden grow as much as
Mm.
that one did. And I think I can't explain it because I didn't space out those seeds properly at all. But it was truly the students, the children giving their love and attention and care and watering it
Yeah.
every day, spending time. And that was such a good co-regulator for them.
Oh, I
I love.
love that.
Yeah,
It's
me too.
incredible.
Me too. It made me think about how starting seedlings with students is so beautiful because you're absolutely right, Elsa. It's that you're showing the care. I was thinking about how in the winter, sometimes I'll bring bulbs in and like daffodils or tulips and
Hmm.
force them to come up. It sounds so terrible when you say it like that. It doesn't harm the plant. But the students love watching the green start to grow. And sometimes in the winter months, it's a little hard to do those parts, but you can
Hmm.
do it in different ways. So that might be another way. I know I also used to do one where we'd get to know our trees in the our local where the school is
Hmm.
on the school grounds, and the students would actually name the trees. That was a big thing, is they would name the trees and write about the trees and give the trees, and that was a good way of helping them. And then
Oh, I love
they felt
that.
like that was their friend. This is my grandpa Joe. He's a Douglas fir, because we had to. It wasn't just about the name; it was about a relationship too. So,
Hmm.
relationship that you were um, deciding on.
Yeah, I love that. I know it's getting late, so I'm just gonna ask one final question. Um, if, or should I say when? No, positive. If a teacher is feeling burned out, not when, or feeling overwhelmed, what is one small co-regulation strategy they could try outside with their students tomorrow if they're still even teaching right now, if they're listening to this in September and they're feeling stressed, what is something that you think they could do?
If you ask me really quickly, like just lying on their backs and cloud
Oh,
watching, and
beautiful.
just for the sake of
Yeah.
feeling great and loving what they see up there, that would be a quick one. Um, yeah, I think just for the sake of just being together and not having some kind of agenda, this learning agenda, but you'll find that they'll learn something anyways,
Yeah.
despite yourself. But actually just going out there and going, hey, let's my friend, JC. JC did this with
Yes.
kindergartens. He did this with kindergartens. There's a
Oh.
picture, and it just reminded me how simple that was because he's had a really hard year.
Mm.
He wouldn't mind me saying this, but he lost his dad, and
Oh.
and so he went to work and he was just like, for my sake, we're gonna go outside and we're gonna lie on the grass and we're
Oh.
just gonna look at the clouds. And I just thought, and he snapped a picture and he showed me, and I thought, what? Like if I was a mom, what a beautiful way to spend a day. Like
Yeah.
I would love my kindergarten to be lying on the grass and looking at clouds.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
And he felt better.
Yeah.
He felt better. The kids were giggling. They had a great time. They took off their shoes and were barefoot.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
They were literally grounded. Right? Literally grounded. I love that idea of staring up and looking up at the sky. You can do the reverse too, where you're actually laying on your stomach and looking
Mm.
at the grass and or listening to the grass. It's amazing all the things you can hear moving around. Um, if it's raining outside, one of the things that I've do is you can lay underneath a tree. So you put your head right up against the trunk of the tree, and as the rain falls down, it's quite, yeah.
So beautiful. Oh, I love these. I don't want this conversation to end.
Oh,
But
you're so
luckily,
cute.
we have a bunch of other topics that I think the three of us are going to be digging into over the
Are we
next little
now?
while, aren't we?
Oh, how exciting.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So thank you so much for, this is sort of the first of many, starting with co-regulation being outside, but there's a lot of other topics around social emotional learning outdoors. And you two just have so much knowledge and experience. So I can't wait to continue these conversations with you. So thank you so much for part one, I suppose.
Mm. Thank you so much. This was so fun. I forgot that this was actually a project. I thought we were just hanging out and just
We
because
are very chill.
it's very
I
good.
agree. I think it's a beautiful thing to be doing and talking about, and I think that we need to have more conversations about this. So
Yeah.
I'm really grateful that this is happening, and agreed, Elsa. We are just hanging out. We are just hanging out and talking. That's the best part.
It is. It's the beauty. So thank you again, and have a wonderful week, everybody. And I'll end the
You
episode,
too.
as always, with the song From the Trees by Brandon Grant. Bye, everybody.
I start on my path, I look around to find a spot that I can call home for a while. Walking slowly, I feel so calm. I find a spot where nature opens up her arms for me to breathe. I see the stories I can learn from the trees, the feeling, the touch of gentle breeze, knowing the land around me brings me peace, watching the world around me sets me free. I feel the sunshine kiss my skin, I hear all of the birds singing from within. I get familiar with my space. I now know how every part fits in every place for me to breathe. I see the stories I can learn from the trees, the feeling, the touch of gentle breeze, knowing the land around me brings me peace, watching the world around me sets me. I go to visit in morning, in sunshine and the rain, to see what's different and notice the things that stay the same. I get to know my teacher, the spot that gives me health. To get to know the land is to get to know yourself. To breathe, I see the stories I can learn from the trees, the feeling, the touch of gentle breeze, knowing the land around me brings me peace, watching the world around me sets me free.